Attorney General Gary King pulled ahead in the five-person field vying to go up against Governor Susana Martinez this fall. Alan Weber, Lawrence Rael came in second and third respectively. The Democratic candidates declined to attack each other, saving their firepower for the sitting governor, but it's still unclear if Mr. King will pose a serious threat to Ms. Martinez, who has a huge lead in fundraising and we can surely bet is already poised to hit with attack ads. Joining me to talk about this and other primary results, we have a former state senator in Dede Feldman back at our table. Also here this week, line regular Dan Foley, he's former minority whip in our House. Another line regular Tom Garrity is back with us as well. And we very much welcome back Martha Burke with the National Council of Women's Organizations to the table. Martha, you quite brilliantly interviewed all five Democratic gubernatorial candidates, and I want to say from our viewership and also here at the New Mexico PBS family, you did a wonderful job with that.
Well, thank you so much.
It's fabulous. It was really fabulous. Your sense of, you had this unique position, talking to all five candidates quite intimately. What was your sense of the field going in? Did you have it as the way it played out all along, or were you expecting something different?
I wasn't expecting a lot different, Gene.
Yeah.
Nobody ran against the other candidates. Everybody ran against Martinez, which is to be expected. There were some universal themes. You know, we're last in graduation rates. Our economy's not too good. Everybody wanted to talk about her record because everybody wanted to be chosen as the one that could beat her. Now, what did surprise me about it was the outcome. Because Gary King, as we all know, was last in the pre-primary convention. He was third in fundraising, which puts him pretty far below in terms of the totals. So the fact that he could pull this out probably on name recognition alone was pretty much of a surprise for me.
Very interesting, Mr. King, isn't it? By the way, Dan, I have to ask on Martha's point, does this settle the issue on these pre-primary conventions? Like, why spend all the time and money and effort? It seemed like Mr. King and his people knew something all the way along, you know?
No, I don't think it does. I think he was able to. I think Martha raises a great point. I think when everybody decided that they were going to go after Susana Martinez in the primary, then name recognition alone is going to make people make a decision, and I think Gary King had that going in.
What, to your mind, just want to skip around the table with different candidates, what didn't happen for Alan Weber, in your opinion?
I don't think I think Alan Weber didn't separate himself from the other Democrats. And when Alan Weber didn't separate himself from the other Democrats with such a low voter turnout, I think you have to go to the base of the party, appeal to the base of the party. And I think it was a given that none of those guys running for governor were going to be in favor of Susana Martinez. So I think the average, my opinion, the average Democrat voter was like, I get it, you all don't like Susana, but why should I vote for you over the other one? And when they didn't get that message, it's an easy vote for Gary.
Interesting. Would you agree with that?
Well, I think that he ran a great campaign. I think he really
Mr.
did.
Weber?
Yes, a progressive campaign. But the problem was that the progressives were split. A lot of progressives were supporting Howie Morales and Lawrence Rael as well. So he had that problem going in. And
let me ask you a question. On the TV side of it, Mr. Weber was fairly red meat about the administration. But Mr. King he had citizens talking about issues. You see what I mean? It was, and particularly issues that affected folks who come out from primaries 50 and over. It was very clear to me that Mr. Weber didn't quite have a hone in on that over 50 crowd that, you know, votes in primaries.
I think that's right, but he tackled the big issues.
Okay.
He tackled the economy. He tackled alternative energy. That was playing to his strengths.
Gotcha.
And there were just not enough of those voters to turn out particularly for him, or they were split between the other two candidates. Lawrence Rael and Howie Morales also had good records in that area.
Exactly right. Tom, you know, Lawrence has been around for quite a long time, and he was typical of the other candidates. Everyone seemed to do well in their home areas where they were expected to do well. But either you were a rural candidate and couldn't crack Bernalillo County, or you're a Bernalillo County-based thing, you couldn't do it in the rural. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Gary King seemed like to be the only one with a statewide kind of approach here.
His organization, you know, he proved that the organization will help you carry the state, and clearly he did that following the primary convention, and then carrying that through. You know, what's interesting to me on this, you know, on the whole governor's race is that while he did win by 12%, you know, 65% of the voters decided he wasn't the person. So, you know, how will he be able to carry that forward moving into November, or fix that? I don't know if it's possible.
Right. On day one after the primary, Mr. King's approach, what he had to say publicly, Getting to Tom's point, where do you think he's at on this? Is he the firebrand he could be to make this thing work?
Well, I don't know that. I think that is a big question because he doesn't have a firebrand image, certainly, but he did go directly on the attack to the governor. Now, they both got some issues here. Let's talk about the HSD mess, for example. She was saying he's a deeply flawed candidate. She didn't say how. But she's criticized him on being slow in doing things about various problems that came to the Attorney General's office. However, some of those problems originated right in her lap. So it's going to be interesting, but I think any candidate, Gene, that is running against the governor is going to have to run against her record. And they're going to have to hammer on that over and over and over. And the New Mexico economy, what is happening there, doesn't matter who the opponent is. If they don't do that, they don't have a chance.
Let's touch on some other races that were out there. Alan Way is now the Republican candidate to face Tom Udall. Interestingly, he spent $200,000 of his own dough in a primary. I've never heard of such an amount of money locally for a primary. Why do you think he would spend that kind of dough? What did he get out of it? Because he's got it. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I mean, you know, and you can't worry about the general if you don't win the primary.
Okay.
And so I think the general election
Was his opponent worthy of $200,000 worth of pushback?
I don't think
Could he have gotten it done for
obviously the
$100,000?
election says no. The results say no.
Yeah.
But his opponent was everywhere. I mean, his opponent was showing up at meetings, shaking hands, doing a grassroots campaign, getting out there. I think the general election, you know, it's interesting hearing Martha talk about Gary King and Susana Martinez. You know, I think Gary King's first issue is going to be overcoming Sam Bregman's comments. But I think Alan Way's got kind of the same problem. He's going to have to figure out how to take on this individual that, you know, regardless of what anybody at the table thinks of either Senator Udall or Governor Martinez, clearly they're both liked by a large number of New Mexicans. They have a ton of money in the bank, and you're going to have to figure out a way to convince people. What people have to remember, you as the challenger, you have the incumbent has to do one thing: convince you should keep me doing what I'm doing. The challenger has to convince you you've made a mistake voting for that person before, and now I'm the answer. So it's kind of tough when you're going after someone, whether you're Alan Way going after Udall that has a few $1 million in the bank, yet you're going to have to get your name out, your message out, tell people why Tom Udall's so bad, Senator Udall's bad, and then tell them why you're better. Kind of tough to do when you're up against someone with a mountain of cash that can combat everything you say and not even blink an eye.
That's a point.
Can I add
Please.
a little bit to that? Way has already telegraphed his strategy. We need veterans in the Senate, not lawyers. He's a veteran, Udall's a lawyer. However, Udall's already out front on that veterans issue. He did an interview right here on this channel, and I just don't think it's a strategy that's going to play.
I would say this about the Alan Way deal. I think I'm not sure that I disagree with Martha, except to say that I think two things are going to hurt that are Alan Way's inroad to go after Tom Udall in New Mexico. One of them is the fact he's now being an ethics complaint is being brought against him by that group in Washington over this VA stuff. He's one of the guys that signed the letter. I think he's done a decent job of articulating why he signed the letter, but I think it's going to be an issue. The other one is, I think when New Mexicans find out that he's been voted the most liberal senator in Washington 2 years in a row, I'm not sure how well that's going to play in outside New Mexico. Rural New Mexico.
Gotcha. Treasurer's race was interesting.
Yeah.
Mr. Reichenberg pulled it off, your ex-colleague in the Senate.
Yeah.
John Wertheim has been at this table as a panelist for many years. Dan mentioned Democratic State Party Chairman Sam Bregman, who actually seems like he called off Mr. Wertheim's attack ads. What did you make of that? And my question is, did that in fact help tip it for Mr. Eichenberg?
Well, he was unsuccessful in getting the ads to stop. They continued,
Right.
And it's pretty rare in a Democratic primary to have one candidate calling the other a sexist, a racist, and a homophobe all in one ad.
Trifecta.
It's the trifecta, exactly. And I think voters reacted against that. And I think Bregman may have set the stage for that, although he was criticized in his own actions. But you wonder, I really think that is the role of the Democratic Party or the Republican Party chair, to kind of try to arbitrate these disputes, try to keep the party together.
Yeah.
Those charges, we'll hear them again.
Right.
And so it's not in the party's interest to do that. But I'm
We're
not
just
sure
almost
how
short on time on
effective.
this one. I apologize. We couldn't get to every race. The Bernalillo County Sheriff's race is interesting, isn't
Surprising.
it? Surprising? Was it surprising to you? Okay.
It was with
interesting.
the last-minute push
Yeah.
from the media
Yeah.
about Sheriff Bayard.
Bayard, yeah.
And the multiple DWIs, and that
Yeah.
it didn't seem to play with the public. I thought it was an interesting.
We'll thrash that one out in the weeks to come. Now, coming up, the second part of my conversation with Senator Tom Udall.